My parents traded the 5-star luxury resort getaway I gifted them for their anniversary. On the eve of the journey, my mother chuckled. I cashed the voucher. As if we'd ever travel with you. My sister smirked. Appreciate the bonus funds. I departed without a single sound. Days later they returned frantic, but it was too late. High atop a Manhattan skyscraper, the endless cityscape below seemed distant and miniature through the expansive glass walls. Jennifer Monroe, immersed in a spread of blueprints on her desk, let out a deep sigh. As the chief executive of Monroe Properties, a fast-growing real estate firm in New York, she navigated each day amid ceaseless activity. Outside, the fading evening light streamed between towering buildings, drenching her office in a warm golden glow that danced on her sun-kissed hair, marking her as an emblem of success. Jennifer, there's a call from Mr. Brown, her assistant Lisa announced softly as she peeked through the doorway. Jennifer offered a slight nod before picking up her cell phone. It was the final update on a major resort development project in Florida. Yes, Mr. Brown. I've reviewed the paperwork and fully understand the special arrangements for my parents, she replied. After hanging up, she withdrew an old photograph from a desk drawer. The faded image showed a young Jennifer with her parents and baby April in front of a modest Queens apartment, a poignant reminder of happier, though humble, times. At the age of 10, when her father Thomas injured his back in a factory accident and lost his steady work, and her mother Martha juggled 2 jobs to keep the family afloat, young Jennifer had taken on part-time work to help pay the bills while balancing her studies. It was during those challenging days that a fierce determination was born within her, a promise to one day ease the hardships her family endured. Earning a scholarship to a renowned university's real estate program, Jennifer made an immediate impression. After graduation, her sharp insight and relentless negotiation skills quickly earned her a sterling reputation, and by age 29, she had established her own company. Over the years, she built Monroe Properties into a dominant force in New York's real estate market. Yet, as her professional success soared, a growing distance emerged between her and her family. Why do you push yourself so hard? Do you want to become someone other than us? Martha had challenged at the celebration of Jennifer's first big win. To Martha, her daughter's triumphs only underscored her own shortcomings. Thomas continued working as a small-time repairman, proud of his self-reliance despite his stubborn refusal to accept her help. Meanwhile, April had dropped out of college and drifted through various part-time jobs while still living at home, secretly resentful of Jennifer's success and resigned to a life of mediocrity. Beneath the appearance of a close-knit family, a storm of conflicting emotions, envy, pride, and the pain of being misunderstood quietly raged. Lisa, you can head home for today, Jennifer told her assistant before retrieving a red envelope from her desk. Inside was a voucher for a 1-week stay in the finest suite at Emerald Bay, prepared as a gift for her parents' 40th wedding anniversary. But this wasn't merely a lavish vacation. It was the opening move in her meticulously crafted plan to secure the future for her parents and April. Emerald Bay Resort, a luxurious complex co-developed by her company, was poised to include an upscale senior residence and care facility. Enclosed were also details for an educational trust fund intended for April. This package was the cornerstone of a long-held promise to ensure her family would never again face the struggles of her own childhood. Clutching the envelope to her chest, she mused quietly, I wonder if they'll understand it this time, as she left the office filled with equal parts hope and apprehension for the coming dinner. On her drive to her parents' home, Jennifer rehearsed the words she had practiced so many times in the car. Tonight was meant to be special. The red envelope symbolized all the love and gratitude she felt for her parents. She parked in a peaceful Queens neighborhood near the small 2-story house that her father, Thomas, had stubbornly maintained despite her offers to pay for repairs. The old porch lights glowed just as they always had. As she stepped through the door, the sound of laughter from the living room greeted her. There, her parents and sister April were engrossed in lively conversation. The moment they noticed her, their laughter stilled abruptly. Oh, Jenny, you're finally here, Martha exclaimed, rising to greet her daughter. I thought you'd be running late. You're always so busy. There was a trace of irony in Martha's tone, but Jennifer chose to ignore it. She offered a bottle of wine, saying, I brought your favorite Chardonnay, the one Dad loves. Thomas responded with a silent nod. When Jennifer's gaze drifted to a piece of paper on the table, April quickly tucked it into her pocket. What were you looking at? Jennifer asked. Oh, nothing, Martha replied briskly as she headed toward the kitchen, announcing, Dinner's ready, please sit down. The table was set with Martha's signature dishes. Trying to find the right moment, Jennifer ventured, By the way, are you free next month? I have something special planned. Martha raised her wine glass and teased, What's that? More of your personal projects. No, it's something more heartfelt, Jennifer replied. Just as she reached for the red envelope, Thomas fixed her with a stern look. Ginny, you really don't need to do anything extravagant for us. We're happy with our life as it is. April interjected with a sarcastic laugh while stuffing a piece of potato into her mouth, adding, You always have to be so dramatic. The conversation soon veered off, with Martha trading neighborhood gossip, Thomas discussing sports, and April chatting about her recent dates. Despite several attempts by Jennifer to steer the talk back, her family skillfully dodged the subject. When apple pie was served for dessert, Jennifer, determined, finally unveiled the red envelope. This is to celebrate your 40th anniversary. I've arranged a special gift, she announced. Martha and Thomas exchanged puzzled glances, and April leaned in with growing interest. Open it, urged Jennifer. Martha withdrew the voucher and documents from the envelope, quickly scanning through them. Thomas also peered at the papers, their faces registering surprise, but not the joy Jennifer had expected. A resort in Florida, Martha murmured. It's impressive, but it's Emerald Bay, one of the most lavish resorts in Florida. It opens next month, including a one-week stay with exclusive arrangements, Jennifer explained, her voice filled with enthusiasm. A heavy silence followed, as an unspoken barrier seemed to separate her excitement from her family's cool demeanor. Then, unexpectedly, Martha began to giggle, the very laugh that once signaled hidden mischief. Jenny, actually, she admitted between chuckles, we already sold that voucher. The color drained from Jennifer's face. What did you just say? She stammered. Yes, Martha confirmed with a shrug. Just last week, your assistant told us a special delivery was coming. When it arrived, we sold it, and we got a great price. Jennifer's voice trembled as she asked, but why? Thomas cleared his throat, adding, to be honest, a vacation with you might have felt too restrictive. We live our own lives. April, taking a sip from her mother's wine glass, added, it did give us a bit of extra pocket money, though. Their laughter filled the room. Martha's eyes glimmered triumphantly, Thomas relaxed further into his chair, and April began checking her messages on her smartphone. Jennifer stood frozen, watching in dismay as all her painstaking plans crumbled. The lifetime resort membership, the exclusive access to the upscale senior facility, and even April's educational trust fund were gone along with that voucher. Did you at least read the enclosed documents? Jennifer asked hopefully. There were some legal details, but they looked too complicated, so I didn't bother, Martha replied indifferently. The buyer said he didn't want those extras anyway. Without another word, Jennifer quietly rose, retrieved her car keys from her wallet, and walked silently toward the door. Leaving already? Martha asked, her voice laced with confusion. What about dessert? Jennifer didn't look back as she stepped outside, drawing a deep breath of the cool night air. Once inside her car and after starting the engine, she managed to hold back her emotions, but about 10 minutes away from her parents' home, tears began to flow, her hands trembling on the steering wheel as her vision blurred. She pulled over to the roadside and wept quietly for a long time. When her phone rang displaying her mother's name, she ignored the call and instead sent a brief message to her assistant. Please cancel all family plans for the Emerald Bay project. I'll explain everything tomorrow. After taking another deep breath and wiping away her tears, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror, silently acknowledging that this moment marked a turning point in her long-troubled relationship with her family. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the expansive office windows, casting a warm glow over the documents spread across her desk. Jennifer's face, marked by sleeplessness, revealed that she'd been at work since early dawn, drowning herself in cup after cup of coffee as she revised the plans for the Emerald Bay project to distract herself from last night's events. Good morning, Miss Monroe, Lisa said softly as she knocked and entered, concern evident in the dark circles under Jennifer's eyes. Without a word, Lisa offered a fresh cup of coffee. Could you explain the schedule changes? She asked hesitantly. Canceling the family plan for Emerald Bay means everything now falls on my shoulders, Jennifer replied wearily. Could you set up a meeting with Mr. Brown today? I need to explain everything to him as soon as possible. No sooner had Lisa left than the phone rang again. Jennifer tensed as she saw it was the international development partner from Florida. Jennifer Monroe speaking. Miss Monroe, this is Brown, came a calm yet commanding voice. I'm calling about the special membership for Emerald Bay. All the documents for your parents are finalized, and the pre-opening tour is arranged. Jennifer closed her eyes for a moment and then said, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, but there's been a change of plans. Striving to maintain her professionalism, she continued, the special membership for my parents is canceled, as is the priority access to the adjacent senior facility. A brief silence followed before Brown responded with clear surprise. Is there a problem? The papers have already passed through our legal department, but this is now a personal matter that won't impact the project, Jennifer stated firmly. My lawyer will contact you regarding the formal procedures. After ending the call, she sighed deeply and pressed the intercom. Lisa, please call Attorney Gordon immediately. About an hour later, her legal counsel, Mark Gordon, was seated in her office. Peering over his glasses, his keen eyes took in Jennifer's exhausted expression. You want to cancel everything? He asked incredulously. The lifetime membership for your parents, the priority access to the future luxury care facility. These are gifts you've been planning for years. Jennifer added. And I'm also scrapping the educational trust fund for April. Mark frowned. May I ask what happened? Jennifer briefly recounted the previous night's events in a flat, emotion-suppressed tone, though Mark could sense the deep hurt behind her words. Legally, there's no issue, Mark finally said. Closing the files, since the documents hadn't yet been officially delivered, everything could be reversed. Still, he paused. That's just my personal view. Don't let anger drive your decisions. It isn't too late to rethink once you've calmed down. Jennifer gave a faint smile. This isn't a choice made out of anger, Mark. I'm simply accepting reality. My family doesn't need my help. In fact, they don't even want it. Mark rose quietly without another word. After years of working together, he knew well the certainty behind her decisions. I'll have the necessary paperwork ready today, he promised before leaving. Jennifer returned to her desk and resumed reviewing plans for a new project, though her mind kept drifting back to the previous night, the altered attitudes of her parents, her sister's dismissive laughter, and her own feeling of helplessness. Suddenly, the office door burst open as Lisa rushed in, panic written on her face. Miss Monroe, I'm sorry, she panted, but we've just received urgent news about the person who bought your parents' voucher. Jennifer looked up sharply. What happened? Lisa explained that the buyer, a Mr. Frank Diaz, had been linked to several fraud cases. Handing over a tablet, she continued, he's notorious as a social engineering expert who deceives seniors into revealing personal details. The screen shows his criminal record and a photo of him. Jennifer fixed her gaze on the image. How did you obtain this information? We were tracking the voucher per your instructions, Lisa replied. Our security team found it being resold online and managed to trace the buyer. Even worse, he may have already initiated fraudulent transactions using your parents' personal data. Jennifer sprang from her chair for a brief moment, almost reaching for her phone to warn her parents, but then she stopped. Torn between her wounded feelings and the responsibility to protect her family, she hesitated. Miss Monroe, Lisa asked with concern, should we notify the police? Jennifer massaged her forehead, organizing her thoughts. No, not yet. Let's gather more information and keep monitoring his movements. Advise your parents to wait a while before contacting anyone. Lisa nodded anxiously and left the room. Jennifer's eyes drifted back to the window. The city's noise remained constant, yet inside, a new determination began to emerge. Family Support Fund, she whispered softly. She opened her computer and began a new document titled Monroe Family Support Foundation. Quickly, she started drafting plans for a nonprofit organization to help those struggling with difficult family relationships, drawing on her own experience. Let my pain become someone else's hope, she thought as her fingers flew over the keyboard, feeling a little lighter than she had yesterday. Just then her phone rang again. It was her mother. Jennifer stared at the persistent ring for a long moment, then quietly rejected the call and returned to her work. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lisa re-entered the room. Miss Monroe, here's the latest report from security, she said in a lowered voice. Suspect Diaz has already opened multiple credit cards in your parents' names. The extent of the fraud might be larger than we expected. Jennifer inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly, disappointment and worry intermingling. I understand, she answered softly. Please compile all the information. I'll decide on the next steps by tomorrow. Lisa offered a gentle nod, understanding her inner conflict, and quietly left. Earlier that New York morning under a clear blue sky, Jennifer had been immersed in a video conference with her Florida development partners. With the final adjustments for the Emerald Bay project reaching a critical stage, she had told them, next week works perfectly for the Miami on-site inspection. I'll also send the revised plan for the family-oriented program today. After the meeting, she checked her schedule. That afternoon she was set to launch a charitable enterprise, the Monroe Family Support Foundation, an initiative she passionately developed ever since the incident with her family. The project was meant to support those entangled in troubled family relationships, especially adult children caring for elderly parents. A sudden call over the intercom interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Monroe, you have visitors. Your mother, father, and sister are here." Jennifer froze. It had been years since her family had come to her office. "Tell them I'm scheduled to leave for Miami this afternoon," she said, striving to remain calm. "I informed them, but they claim it's very urgent." Lisa's voice dropped. "They sound extremely distressed." Closing her eyes, Jennifer took a deep, steadying breath. "All right. Please show them to the conference room. I'll join you in 10 minutes. Hastily, she arranged the documents on her desk, checked her appearance in the mirror, and composed a professional expression. Beneath that, anger and disappointment toward her parents still simmered, mixed with concern over the unfolding fraud. 10 minutes later, she opened the conference room door. There sat Martha, Thomas, and April with tense expressions. Martha's eyes were red and puffy from crying. Thomas's face revealed deep fatigue, his usual stubbornness softened, and April nervously fiddled with her smartphone, avoiding eye contact. "What's wrong?" Jennifer asked calmly. Martha tried to stand, but her legs trembled, forcing her to sit again. "Jennifer, we need your help," she said, voice shaking. "We're in serious trouble." Thomas cleared his throat. "We were deceived by a con artist, the man who bought that voucher." April looked up, fear flashing in her eyes. "It seems all our personal information has been stolen. Credit cards have been opened without our knowledge, and debts are accumulating." "Have you contacted the police?" Jennifer asked, keeping her voice steady. "We did yesterday," Martha replied tearfully. "But they couldn't believe such extravagant purchases were made in our names. They said it wasn't us. The guy was a professional scammer." Thomas added in a mix of anger and shame. "We were taken in too easily." Then, with trembling hands, Martha produced a newspaper clipping from her handbag. "Look at this," she said. The headline read, "Priority Rights to Luxury Senior Residences," with photos of lavish facilities. "Is this the present you intended for US?" Tears welled in Martha's eyes. Jennifer took the clipping and stared silently. Her expression remained unreadable. "Mom has been crying all night after seeing that," April murmured softly. "We finally understand what we've done, Jenny." Thomas, his voice unusually weak, added, "I understand your intentions now, but is it too late?" Jennifer slowly sat down, studying each face in the room. Just last week she had longed for this moment, the day her family would truly appreciate her care. But now her heart was heavy with conflicted feelings. "Yes, it is too late," she finally said. "The voucher you sold wasn't merely for a vacation." She reached into her desk drawer and brought out a set of documents. These copies detail the lifetime membership to Emerald Bay, the priority access to the planned luxury senior residence, and a gift deed for a villa for both of you. Martha and Thomas gasped, and Jennifer then looked at April. "They also include arrangements for an educational trust fund for you, so you can return to college or start a new career when you choose." April dropped her smartphone and covered her trembling lips. "Did we ruin everything?" Martha's voice came out hoarsely. "All rights were terminated when you sold the voucher." Jennifer replied coolly, "After learning this, I canceled all the procedures." A heavy silence fell over the room. Thomas buried his face in his hands as his shoulders shook. Martha stared ahead blankly, and April began to cry softly. "Jenny, Martha started, searching for words to apologize, but none came. "This is the consequence of your decision," Jennifer stated evenly. "You dismissed my love, and now you must bear the cost. Won't you help us deal with the fraud?" Thomas asked hopefully. Jennifer exhaled deeply. "I've already reported it to the police. My security team is tracking the fraudster, and my lawyer will handle the damage to your personal information." A flicker of hope lit up on Martha's face, but Jennifer continued firmly. "I will help resolve your financial problems, but let this be the last time. Never again should my care be taken lightly." Martha's voice trembled. "No, please don't say that." Jennifer stood abruptly. "I'm leaving for Miami now. When I return, I'll have my lawyer contact you about the fraud. As for everything else, I need time." She headed for the door. "Lisa will explain the next steps. Goodbye." Just as the door closed, the sound of April's quiet crying lingered in the room. In the hallway outside the conference room, Jennifer took a deep breath. The weight in her chest felt marginally lighter. Lisa approached with concern. "Are you all right?" "Yes," Jennifer managed a slight smile. "Is everything set for Miami?" "Yes, all set," Lisa confirmed. "I've packed the Monroe Family Support Foundation documents in the car." "Thank you," Jennifer said, then returned to her office and gazed out the window. A cloudless blue sky stretched out, promising a fresh beginning. Briefly, she looked at the family photo on her desk before tucking it into her bag. Although the wounds remained, A new determination had taken root in her heart. On a December day, as snow swirled through New York and festive lights decorated the city, Jennifer watched the scene from her office window. 6 months had passed since the Monroe Family Support Foundation was established, and it had already helped many families, providing counseling for complicated family dynamics, support groups for children with elderly parents, and housing aid for families in need. A soft knock came at the door. "Miss Monroe, here's the final report for the year," Lisa announced quietly. Jennifer nodded and reviewed the documents. The foundation's achievements had surpassed all expectations. "Have we heard from my parents?" she asked casually. Lisa shook her head slightly. Just like last week, a card arrived after the fraud issue was resolved. Jennifer learned that her parents had moved into a modest senior apartment, that Thomas had begun volunteering to repair things at the local community center, and that Martha had started teaching knitting to neighborhood children. April had enrolled in night school with plans to earn an accounting qualification. They sent cards and letters every week, but Jennifer had yet to reply. It would take time for her heart to mend. Opening her desk drawer, she looked at the pile of cards from her family. Then, as if making a firm decision, she stood and grabbed her coat. "I'm leaving early today," she told Lisa. "Merry Christmas." Driving through a quiet Queens neighborhood in the falling snow, Jennifer clutched a small paper bag as she arrived at her parents' new apartment. Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door. Surprise lit up Martha's face as she opened it, with Jenny, Thomas, and April peeking out from the living room, astonished. With a gentle smile, Jennifer stepped inside. The modest, warm room was adorned with a small Christmas tree. "I'm sorry for coming so suddenly," she said softly. "I brought a Christmas present." She withdrew an envelope from the paper bag. "These are tickets for a day tour of Emerald Bay. I plan to join you on this trip." Tears welled in Martha's eyes. Thomas stood speechless and April gasped softly. "Jenny, Martha choked on her words. Jennifer continued gently. "I'm not asking you to forget the past, but I hope we can start building a new relationship." Slowly, Thomas extended a trembling hand. "Thank you, daughter." April rushed over and embraced her tightly. "I'm so sorry," she repeated through tears. A warmth began to fill the room. Although the wounds hadn't fully healed, hope was kindled for a fresh start. Outside, snow quietly blanketed the Christmas night as the 4 family members gathered together under one light. Jennifer's heart pounded in her chest as she stood in the doorway of her parents' modest apartment on that cold Christmas morning. The fragile, tentative warmth that had begun to stir between them now faced its greatest test. Over cups of lukewarm coffee at the worn kitchen table, the family gathered slowly, each with their own doubts and regrets lingering in the quiet spaces between words. After the initial surprise of the Christmas present, tickets for a day tour of Emerald Bay with Jennifer joining them, a long pause settled over the room. Martha, her eyes moist with unshed tears, broke the silence. "Jenny, we've made mistakes, and I'm so sorry for not understanding your love all these years." Thomas, his voice subdued and heavy, added, "I was stubborn and afraid of change. I never imagined our choices could hurt you this deeply." April, her tone trembling, whispered, "I was jealous and lost. I thought I had to live the ordinary life, but now I see how extraordinary you've always tried to make things for us." Jennifer listened, her own heart aching from old wounds and recent betrayals. The memories of the previous harsh night, the laughter, the bitter words, the shattered plans, still lingered, yet they gradually gave way to a soft, tentative promise of forgiveness. "I understand that none of us were perfect," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the tears glistening in her eyes. "I've poured my heart into trying to secure our future, but somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what we all needed most: understanding and togetherness." Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in silence as if urging them to leave behind the harshness of their past. Jennifer suggested, "Let's take a trip tomorrow to Emerald Bay together. Not for any grand project or promise of luxury, but simply as a family, to see what we can build anew." Martha reached out, her hand trembling as it found Jennifer's, while Thomas nodded slowly, and April managed a small, hopeful smile. That day, as the family embarked on their journey to Emerald Bay, the crisp winter air and scenic drive provided a soothing backdrop to their tentative reconciliation. Conversations that once seemed too heavy began to flow, sharing memories both bitter and sweet, and each word felt like a tentative step toward healing. Jennifer admitted her own regrets, how her relentless pursuit of success had isolated her from those she loved most. Her parents, in turn, acknowledged their own fear of change and their resistance to accepting her help. April confessed her feelings of inadequacy and longing for her sister's guidance. At the resort, amidst the vibrant colors of the tropical setting contrasting with the snowy memories of home, the family spent a day exploring the grounds, dining under the soft glow of sunset, and simply enjoying the ease of being together. They sat on a secluded balcony, where the gentle murmur of the ocean mingled with their heartfelt conversation. For the first time in years they shared dreams and plans, not business ventures or security funds, but hopes for a future where love and communication prevailed over misunderstandings and pride. Back in New York, Jennifer's professional world began to blend with her personal life in a way she hadn't imagined possible. Inspired by the raw honesty of her family's reunion, she initiated changes at Monroe Properties. She introduced policies that encouraged work-life balance, invested in community projects, and even integrated some of her personal experiences into the Monroe Family Support Foundation's mission. The foundation, once a cold repository of legal documents and corporate plans, was transformed into an organization dedicated to mending fractured family bonds and providing support for those caught in cycles of regret and misunderstanding. As months passed, the healing process for the Monroe family grew steadily. Jennifer's parents began attending counseling sessions arranged by the foundation, and April enrolled in a local college course, not out of obligation but driven by a newfound curiosity about the world and her own potential. Jennifer herself found solace in regular family dinners, a tradition they all revived with sincere commitment. Slowly, the echoes of past mistakes were replaced by laughter, shared stories, and the kind of silences that spoke of comfort rather than regret. During one particularly memorable dinner, a celebration of a modest anniversary of reconciliation, the family sat around the table in the familiar glow of their home. Martha, looking at Jennifer with eyes full of tender remorse, said, "We may have lost much along the way, but today, I feel like we've found something even more precious. A chance to be together, truly together." Thomas, his usual gruffness softened by the passage of time, added, "I'm proud of the woman you've become, Jenny, and I'm sorry for not always showing it." April, now more confident and joyful, smiled broadly and said, "We're a family that's learned to forgive, to accept our faults, and to love each other regardless." In that moment, Jennifer felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The bitterness of the past no longer held her captive. Instead, it had become a catalyst for change, a reminder that even when plans fall apart and dreams shatter, there is always a possibility to rebuild, stronger and more compassionate than before. The voucher incident, once a symbol of betrayal, had inadvertently paved the way for open dialogue and a shared understanding that true security was not measured in financial assets or legal documents, but in the strength of familial bonds. Years later, as Jennifer reflected on the journey that had transformed her family's lives, she would often recall that snowy Christmas day and the subsequent trip to Emerald Bay as the turning point. The moment when she learned that love, when nurtured with honesty and forgiveness, could mend even the deepest wounds. Her legacy at Monroe Properties and the Monroe Family Support Foundation became intertwined with that lesson, serving as a constant reminder to all that success is hollow without the support and warmth of those we hold dear. In the end, the Monroe family found their resolution not through grand gestures or elaborate plans, but through the simple, enduring act of coming together, accepting each other's flaws, celebrating each other's strengths, and building a future where each member felt valued, understood, and loved.